Ham Radio. Welcome back, everybody. It's Freddie Mac, your ham radio crusader, and we're back again to continue the DVSwitch server series. So in my last video, we installed DVSwitch server onto a PC, a little micro PC, one of those little Lenovo's you can see on eBay all over the place. But today, I'm going to show you how to put DVSwitch server onto a Raspberry Pi. So to get started, pop yourself an SD card into the computer so we can launch the Raspberry Pi imager and get started. Now that we've got our Raspberry Pi imager up on the screen, we're going to choose the device. And for today's little tutorial, we're going to be choosing the Raspberry Pi 4 because that's what I have available and it's just amazing. So let's choose our operating system. I like to go with the Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit Bookworm, but I don't want a desktop environment because it's just more than you'll actually need. So we'll go to Raspberry Pi OS Other, Raspberry Pi OS Lite, and it's the Bookworm version, compatible with the Raspberry Pi 3, 4, and 400 and the 5. 400 is the compute module. Hit enter on that. And then we'll choose our storage, and you don't want to choose the wrong one. I have this nice little 32 gig SD card right here that we're going to use. Hit next. And would you like to apply OS customization settings? Well, I do. This is just me, but I like to be able to find my device on the network later. And we're going to edit some customized OS settings here because that's how I roll. And I'm going to call this DVSwitch test. I'm going to set a username and password. This will get me into the OS, and this is the wireless portion of my install. So this is my home Wi-Fi credentials. And if you click show password, you can make sure you got it right. And then the time zone settings, mine are America, Chicago, and US. So I'm going to leave these the way they are. I'm going to hit services, make sure I've got use password authentication on, and make sure those are tested or check marked in options. And then we'll hit save. And then would you like to apply these OS customization settings? I'm going to hit yes. All existing data on the generic mass storage class USB device will be erased. Are you sure you want to continue? Well, I am. And now we'll let it write our SD card. And we're done. So now you can remove the SD card from the computer. Okay, so now I've come over here to PuTTY, and you can see I have some other servers already saved in there, but we named ours DVSwitch test. I'm going to leave the port at 22 and hit open, and boom, we're right to it. So it's like, hey, I've never used this one before. Do you trust it? Well, yeah, we're going to accept that. And we're going to log in as KD5FMU. Oops. And the password that we gave it. And we're in to the DVSwitch server. Actually, it's just, so far, it's just Bookworm. We've got to install DVSwitch server. So I'm going to back out of this, make it a little larger so we can see it easier. Frog. Okay, now let's log in again. And we're into our Debian install. So let's see if we have root. And we do not. So I typed in sudo passwd root to change the root password, and it asked for new password, and I typed it in. Now it's asking me to retype it, and it was updated successfully. I like to know my root password. That's just me. So let's clear the baffles here, and let's get on with our install, shall we? So we're going to come up here and type in sudo, and then paste in this line. It's sudo wget dvswitch.org/bookworm. This is the DVSwitch repository. Okay, and then we'll hit enter. And we've downloaded Bookworm, so we can do an ls-l and see there's our script file Bookworm, but it's not executable, so we're going to do a sudo chmod +x Bookworm and then ls-l, and now you can see that it is executable. And this, like I said, will just install the DVSwitch repository. So let's do a sudo /bookworm, and it's starting the DVSwitch repository install. And away we go. And the repository has been installed. So what do we want to do now? Well, we really need to update since we have that new repository in there. So we're going to type in sudo apt update. And we've got 70 packages that can be upgraded. So we're going to do a sudo apt upgrade. And let's get through all of that. Yep. Hit yes. And we wait. Okay, now everything is done updating, so I probably don't need to do this, but you know me, I really like to start things anew, and I'm going to do a sudo reboot. Okay, I think it's been enough time now for the server to reboot, so I'm going to right-click up here in the gray area of the window and hit Restart Session. Log in as shows up at the bottom, and I'm going to do KD5FMU and put in my password. And I'm in. So I'm going to clear the screen here. Now we're going to do sudo apt install DVSwitch server. After this operation, 498 megabytes of additional space will be used. Do you want to continue? Well, yes, we do. And away we go. Okay, now that's all done. You know what I'm going to do. You guessed it. Sudo reboot. Okay, it's been a few minutes, so let's right-click up here and restart our session. And log in as KD5FMU and my password. Put a nice little password there. And we'll type a happy little clear command here. And we're back to the command line. Little Bob Ross for you there. So we've got Raspbian installed on the SD card. Got it booted up. Everything's updated. We installed the DVSwitch server repository. We've installed DVSwitch server. So what do we do now? So once we're here, we're going to type DVS, and boom, we are in the configuration tool for DVSwitch server. It always asks you right off the bat, do you want to change your language settings now? Well, I like to fool with it and just say yes and choose English, and it's like, you're already using English. So I hit OK again. So then you can go through here and do your initial configuration. So let's do something simple, shall we? And we're going to figure this for the WX5 OKM Amateur Radio Club. So 3196188. And we're going to change that suffix to something like, oh, I like 17. Enter, enter, enter. Let's choose a Brandmeister server near us. I'm not going to use it anyway. Put in your password there. No hardware vocoder for this installation. And there's our initial one done. Initial configuration finished. DVSwitch server is up and running. But I'm going to come down here to advanced config. Change the frequency. Because that repeater is 444.175 on the receive. Actually, it receives on 449 since it is a repeater 175. And it transmits on 444.175. Its power is 20 watts. Won't change that. It's at 300 feet. And it's in Preston, Oklahoma. Leave these at default. Let it save its new settings. And hit OK. Now I'm going to go to advanced configuration and setups for DMR plus TGIF and other networks. I'm going to change the default DMR server to TGIF. Go back, configure the TGIF network. Default, and put in the password. Type in my TGIF network password, hit OK, leave at default, hit finished, and go back. And at this point we can exit the DVSwitch config box, but we want to check our browser to see if our dashboard is up and running. I know my IP address for the DVSwitch install is 192.168.1.84/index.php, and there is our dashboard. Let me get this zoom level all straightened out. There's our DVSwitch dashboard, and you can see that it's in DMR mode on Talk Group 9. It's using the club's DMR ID, suffix 17 for the repeater, and DMR modes and DMR networks are enabled and running in it. What you can see here, the DMR master is TGIF network, and yeah, there's our information at the bottom of the screen. So DVSwitch server is up and running, y'all. DVSwitch server's installed. DVSwitch dashboard is up and running. We have a basic config in there, so congratulations, you've just installed DVSwitch server on a Raspberry Pi on your home network. How cool is that? Because it's on Wi-Fi as well. You can also hardline it. It will have both adapters enabled. If it's configured right, I can also just open up a browser and type in http:// it doesn't have an SSL certificate, so we got to leave the S off the HTTP. Type in DVSwitch test, which was my host name that I put in Raspberry Pi image, or whatever you put was what you would put here, /index.php, just like you see right here. Then we'd hit enter, and boom, there is our DVSwitch dashboard. It's a lot easier to get to if you know that host name that you put in there. Now I just put in DVSwitch test. I think you can also type in .local. Yeah, DVSwitch test.local, which I believe is the default in the Raspberry Pi imager. So there you go, DVSwitch server on a Raspberry Pi for you on your little old home network. So go forth and configure it and do with it as you will. This is Freddie Mac, your ham radio crusader, saying 73s, wishing all the good signals to be yours, and ham on, y'all.